think today I'm going to focus on the notification draw. I couldn't test yet because I didn't finish the notification draw, but all the other functions I placed on the two classes, and it seems to be compiling. But when I try to open the executable to see some stuff on the editor, not a building, but opening from the directly with the executable, it closed, it crashed. So I imagine that there's some dangling pointer somewhere, but I have to try to finish this notification draw function first. And it is the most challenging one, that's why I left for the last one. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna be able to do this, but I'm gonna try. Like what I was doing here, I think I'm gonna delete this stuff here. Oh, there's also there's both the notification draw and the handle inputs. On the handle inputs, what I did, like those are the most challenging functions because they have the most from the two different classes. But like there are mixed functions. And what I did on the GUI input is to split into two different functions, and then I left the parts that use the most of one class or the other into their respective classes. And then I think I left the implementation on text visualizer, and text visualizer just calls the one from symbol crafter. But on the notification draw, I think that's I can't really do this. And also, I'm not really sure about this strategy either, obviously, because I'm only gonna be able to see if it's working once I finish the whole class and I can test things. But I think what I'm gonna try to do now is to go over the code here, because I have to try to understand how each part works, and then I'm gonna try to break it down, I think, into like smaller functions, and then think about like, because based on the design that I'm trying to implement, I know for sure it's gonna be different, because the purpose of the highlighting, for example, I think highlighting is the main one that comes to mind right now, is going to be based on the parser engine. At least that's how I'm thinking about doing. Maybe it's not the best way, but the way that I'm thinking about it is that like the symbol crafter is like the interface, and then it processes everything and uses the parser engine class to create the tokens. Then based on the tokens, you create the highlighting of each part of the text according to the way that you're gonna parse the text. Then you send this information to the text visualizer. So symbol crafter should use parser engine to get this information from the text. Actually, by thinking about this, maybe is wrong the inputs. I think I should probably change. But this is part of the whole process, because I was thinking about like, I think the main thing that I didn't like so far is that they use this other class on this one, which is the text class, and it doesn't seem the best. And also, like because there were several different functions that are mixed functions that I had to split between the two classes, it makes me think that there's probably like fundamental problems with the design, because I think it should be the case that I could implement like only the symbol crafter and then have a unidirectional data flow from the symbol crafter to the text visualizer, where like the symbol crafter is the interface and then it sends the data to text visualizer, and text visualizer doesn't need the symbol crafter to implement anything. So I think that's what but the thing is, obviously there's trade-offs for everything, so I'm not really sure if it's worth it to spend the time trying to figure out, or if I should just get to the point where it works first. So I think for the notification draw, I'm gonna have to change. There's like, because that's the main thing that is gonna be different from the way that they were doing to the way that I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna be forced to change, I think. So I'm just gonna have to spend a bunch of time trying to understand how everything works here. But the text parts is the one that's like intuitively I think that I should change everything, or not everything, but most of the things, because it doesn't seem that it is the best. Like it seems that there could be a lot of improvements. But it's just very annoying and frustrating because it's gonna take a massive amount of time, I think, to understand every single nuance of how they are organizing everything. And what's annoying as well, so the idea that I have, the reason why I'm doing this now is because instead of trying to change everything at once, is obviously I think much better to try to incrementally do things. So I think that's the place that I'm coming from now, is trying to first make it work the way that it was before, but with the two classes. Then once I get to the point, I think about like how to minimize the amount of times I'm using the symbol crafter on the text visualizer, and then change the variables, maybe change the functions as well. And the other thing that obviously is kind of I'm not really sure about is the like separation, because I use ChatGPT to separate the two classes mainly. So obviously I'm not really sure if it's hallucinating, or like if the distinction makes sense, the way that I'm drawing the lines. And I think this is one of the things that makes that kind of confusing, because the reason why I put these functions here on this class is because of the ChatGPT separation. But I think like most of them are gonna use this text class, and that's the thing that's because if I put all the functions on the other class, then obviously it doesn't make sense to create two different classes. Just use one. But I think that it makes sense, like from a first principles perspective, it makes sense to separate into two different classes, because then it becomes easier to think about how they work. I think probably the scroll, everything related to scroll should be here. I think, like I said, I should probably try to. So I think first what I should do is try to separate or find boundaries on this function. Then see if I can create like I think GPT said some functions, but I'm not really sure if I trust this as well. It said these functions here. I guess that's part of the challenge on separating them, because I don't know everything that is going to be drawn. I already looked into this superficially. Oh, this thing I changed. I think I need to go over. So I'm gonna delete this or copy it again from TextEdit to this class. So this one I was thinking about doing that, but I was going about in a different way. So just copy the functionality from that class into this one, because obviously the highlighting is gonna be from symbol crafter, like I said. I think I need to delete this, and I need to go over from the beginning. So that's what I'm gonna do here. Actually, I have an idea. So I'm gonna delete this, and I'm gonna delete the other function. Then I'm gonna try to compile again. Because from what I remember, it was compiling. So, but I think that there's something wrong because it's crashing. The executable is crashing. So I think I'm gonna delete both of them, try to compile. And if it works, I'm going to try to debug to see what is the problem. Then once I fix the problem and make it work, then I'll go back to doing this. I think I'm just gonna copy the text edit one. I don't understand why they created this text class here. That's part of the reason why it's kind of confusing. Because if I remove now and I don't know like everything that is wrong, it might mess a lot of things up. But it seems like the main this is basically like a class that stores the text, and then they have this other struct here where they keep the lines. So they parse the text based on lines, and they keep on this vector, and then they have these functions that work like as an API from the other class to the lines. Yeah, now it looks like it is working. I'm just gonna do one more time to check. I'm gonna run with the debugger, and then I'm pretty sure that it is gonna crash. So I'm gonna try to see where is the dangling pointer. Oh, it's because of the thing. So this was one of the annoying things. I do think it makes more sense to leave the theme on the theme cache on the text visualizer. But it looks like it's not on the place. So there are some places that yeah, I'm using this thing here. So maybe I'm gonna have to go back to studying this stuff. I think, yeah, this function was, I think, ChatGPT that gave, and I pasted here. But it obviously it should get the thing cache. Just simplify the other class. And this one uses the macros to bind. Also, maybe that's the reason I didn't do the bind methods. Hmm. I think I was leaving the bind methods to the end, because obviously I was thinking about pasting. So maybe I'm gonna do this now. Because the notification draw is not gonna like matter for the, because already inside the notification function. So the way that I was thinking about doing is just copying everything and then deleting, copying everything for both classes and then deleting everything that is not related to the class. So I think that the reason why I'm getting these errors is because, so maybe it's like a good idea to go back to this as well. But the way that it works is that when you want to use the values of a thing to determine how the class is going to look like, you declare the theme cache uh, struct inside of the class, and then you use the some minimums on the bind methods to override the values or to get the values from the theme context, I think. So I think what is happening is that because I'm not using the macro, it tries to get the font value, but it doesn't have anything. It's basically this struct here. So you declare the struct here, and these are essentially the values that you want to override on the theme. And then you're gonna use the macro to override these values. It's basically this macros here. So I think because I'm not using this macro, it doesn't have a font. I'm gonna try this first, obviously, just see if it works. I was gonna copy everything. Also remove the GD bind stuff, because I think I'm not gonna use it. So I'm gonna delete there as well. I forgot to press MA there to remember this stuff. So these are basically the properties of how you subscribe the properties to class DB. It's like the name of the getter and the setter of the functions, and then the name of the variable. In some situations, is not exactly the same name, but here I think it's probably from the other class. But I've seen that more on arguments of the functions when they use class DB bind methods. A lot of the times the name of the argument's not exactly the same, so I don't think that matters that much. But so far I've been trying to always make the same. So I think this one's from the other class. Mm. There's the gunner center. It's probably from the text, but it's weird that I don't have. Maybe it's because the name is different. Oh, it's this other variable here. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, that's kind of weird. Oh, whatever. This one I'm pretty sure it is from this. Is also from here, I think. No, so. Oh, actually, so I want to change to the name there, so I know for sure if it is from this class or not. But this should be from this class here. Yeah. So I should put that back. What is here? Actually, these ones maybe I should just comment out. I think I'm just gonna, because I think on the other one I commented out, but I'm just gonna remove from here. Like here, because it's probably not gonna be the same the way that I do. These ones I know. Everything related to selections from symbol crafter. Just gonna remove this. And these ones, a lot of them I remember now. I'm just checking to see. I think carrots, everything is from symbol crafter as well. Yeah. Except this one. Maybe get this. And this is the stuff that I'm talking about again with the separation of the two classes. Like this, I think ChatGPT thinks that this should be on this class because it's more related to visual effects. But it is kind of a weird thing because like everything from Carrot is on the other class. So at that point, doesn't it make sense to move this to the other one? But so I think that this is the kind of stuff I should probably spend more time thinking about. But it's probably better to move everything to make it work first, and then think about this later. Because I think it might be possible to remove some stuff as well that they were drawing that I'm not gonna need. All this stuff is wrong here. And maybe wrapping, I think it's probably not necessary for the stuff that I'm trying to do, but probably gonna leave here. Is to wrap the line. Okay, so obviously need to be careful with the color here. Not sure why it's not showing that it doesn't have. It's from the text. These ones I'm gonna go based on the text here and more from what I remember, like the color of the text and what I remember each class does. This one I don't remember if I. Hmm. Anything related to gutters and drawing is on this class here. Selection and carrot is on the other, with some exceptions. And the minimap stuff is here as well. A drag and drop is another one that I'm not really sure. Like I lapped on the symbol crafter, but I'm not really sure if it makes sense to leave there or if I should put on the text visualizer because obviously it's more related to the visualization. So maybe I'm gonna change later. The problem is that like I think that the reason why the reason why I put there in first place was because of ChatGPT, but then I looked inside of the function and it seems that it uses most logic from the symbol crafter. But like from first principles perspective, obviously it makes more sense to be on the text visualizer. So this is the thing that is kind of weird. It makes me think that there's probably some stuff wrong with the overall design of the class. Not wrong, but like it worked for the way that they were doing because they designed the thing to work with GDScript probably and C Sharp. So they didn't design it in a way that like is inclined to scale for like a bunch of different languages. That's kind of the problem. This one I was also thinking about putting on this class, but because it's related to selection, there's a bunch of logic from the like all these functions here from symbol crafter, which I think that selection is one of the weirds. Like it's probably the weirdest thing. I think both selection and char it's kind of weird because it is related to logic, like to organization, let's say, or these aspects here that's insertion, deletion, navigation, but it's also related to the drawing. So I think that those parts I have to spend a bunch of time probably trying to understand everything, and then thinking about how to change the design. Oh, this is another thing that I'm not really sure what about. Like, what is this? But according to ChatGPT and some videos that I watched, is input methods enabled or something like that, and is for supporting different keyboards. So like keyboards that have different characters, like Chinese characters and some other countries. But I still don't understand very well like how it works. But I think it's a system like on the codes that's based on those characters, it translates them into whatever, something like that. But I'm not really sure if I'm gonna leave that there. I think I'm just gonna like it depends on how much work it takes. So after I make it work with the way that it was supposed to work before. Oh, the other part that I'm not really sure is whether or not to because I'm gonna merge both the code edits and the text edit on the same classes. So I'm not really sure if I should try to like make it work now and then try to improve everything and only then try to bring this stuff from code edit to the class, or if I should put this stuff on code edit right away and then improve later. And it's probably better to put the code edit stuff first because it's gonna be obviously like it's gonna work the same way that was supposed to work, and then I change everything. But like the downside of that, like the good side of improving now, that's it would force me to understand a lot more how it works, and then it would make it easier to translate this stuff right away, I think. So I'm probably gonna ask ChatGPT what it thinks the trade-offs are, and then think about more what should I do. Yeah, so basically this input methods editor. I'll be right back. I deleted from the wrong class. No, that's correct. When I pressed the 12, went to this one. Let's make sure that's... Yeah. I'm gonna change the name. This is gonna be annoying. So I think I'm gonna change this once to this. Then I'll change later again. I don't know that this is not here. This stuff. Let's think about this. So I know like this usually happens because of the variance. So it is one of the functions on the bind methods. It probably uses the class. So how do they do this? Well, I think it's because of is this thing here. So this is one thing that I had to change. That's before they had this get text function, but it wasn't to get the text class. The variable text from the class was to get the string of the text. So I changed to this so that it returns the actual text, so I could use on the other class. And then I changed the name of the original one to this one. So I think that's the reason why it's complaining there, because I am trying to subscribe on class DB with the text class that is not, the variant doesn't support. So I'm gonna try to change this through here. See if this works. The set text, I think I didn't change anything, because I just needed to get the text to basically make it work. Which is, like I said before, one of the things that I think is kind of annoying, and I probably should change. Because in the way that it is now, there's a bunch of functions that's just using pointers I'm using on text visualizer, I'm using the pointer from symbol crafter, and on symbol crafter, I'm using the pointer from text visualizer. And this happens a lot, which I think you shouldn't probably. Yeah, so it is this. So this is a problem. I think I'm just gonna comment this out. Sure. Or I'm just gonna do, so this is probably from the way that they were doing before. So I'm just gonna change the name here. Yeah. This one I think doesn't matter that much. The setting singleton. So if it doesn't solve, I'm not really sure which one I'm gonna try to solve first. Because if it doesn't solve, then it might. Probably the thing that I'm gonna have to do is to think about how to either restructure things or like change the theme, stuff like that. Like it's gonna be a structural problem with the classes, the relationship between the classes. And then I'm gonna have to think about that, but then also have to solve the other one. So I have to think about which one is worth doing first. I think probably I'm gonna focus on the draw function first, and then go back to this because then I can think about like changing everything at the same time. Yeah. So now it seems that there's another issue. So maybe it did solve the other problem. And now there's this other one here. I was saying the shared is a null pointer. So maybe it's because it didn't initialize this. Yeah, I think it didn't initialize. We'll go back to the constructor. This is kind of a weird thing though. So maybe it's because it is like a different way. The constructor did basically the same thing as I did with the other one. And so it does look like where I copied the whole thing on both classes and then I just removed the stuff that was not related to the class. So this thing that I'm using here, I'm initializing here. So probably the easiest way to solve is just to put a check there. Because I think what is happening is based on the property again. So it's because the getters and setters of the properties. That, but I think I didn't change the. Yeah, so it is here. It's weird that if it was something related to the bind methods, then like there would be a problem with this class as well, I think. Like, I remember that I had a similar problem on some other class. I think it was something along those lines. There was something weird with the range class that I don't remember really well. I think it was when I was building like trying to build the classes. They are basically the same. They work on the same way that the inspector classes work on the editor. And I was trying to put the default value on the slider. I think that's when this happened. But the problem wasn't a null pointer, I think. It was that the value was wrong in the beginning. And I think it's because of the way that they initialized this shared class here. I don't remember really well what was the problem. So it looks like this is no. So how is that possible? This is on the get property. Yeah, I think it's just because of the bind methods, since like it's on this class here. And what's happening is that it's using the function that I put there for the property, but then it breaks. But the thing that is weird is like why this doesn't happen on the original class, because it's basically the same, because I didn't change the function, so it should be the same getter on the original class. So I'm not really sure if it's something to do like with the way that it is initializing the class. Hmm. I'm just gonna put I'll think about this later because I might change everything anyway. So stats. I would say it's gonna be the same thing. Maybe I'll ask ChatGPT first before. So I think probably, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna break down the notification draw. I'm gonna try to break down into multiple different functions. Because the problem is I'm not probably not gonna be able to do that because I do remember like, more at the end there's a point where there's a loop and like there's a bunch of logic after the loop. So I think that they kind of do everything from that point like on the same block of code. So it's not gonna be like there's probably a way to break it down, but then it's gonna be very annoying to think about everything. So I think that one I might have to just leave everything on the same thing. But before that, I can split on the minimap, I think, and maybe somewhere else. It's kind of weird. Let's see. Oh, did I change the wrong one? Yeah, I think I changed the wrong class. I'll go back to again. Oh yeah, it's all like unorganized because I obviously went like progressively did everything. So I just put on the whatever place I was looking at, I think. So it's probably somewhere else. The other functions. It's probably easier to look from the declaration. So, so I think after I break down the draw into probably three functions, I'm going to ask ChatGPT what it thinks the trade-offs are. Because obviously, like I can solve everything just by calling each thing from using the pointers on both classes. So maybe that's what I should do in the beginning, and then I think about the rest of the stuff later. I think I need to like make it work and then step into or step over. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about doing. So like make it work, then I commit everything, then I create another branch, and then I like delete. I go over. At first, I have to see. The problem is that like it's not gonna be exactly the same, obviously, because it's just the text edit, and the one that I had before is the code edit. So I'm not really sure if it's gonna, but I'll see. I can test, just see how it looks. And there's something weird going on that is using, like it's trying to get the properties. It's probably because it's initializing the class from the editor. It's trying to get these properties. I think it's probably because like it's getting the properties without running the constructor. I think that's the thing. I think it's because, but I am running. Hmm. I'm just gonna put the check here. But I think I'm pretty sure I am building from the symbol crafter. Like I am calling the constructor on this because from what I remember, I don't remember really well, but from what I remember, the editor is gonna load use is gonna use package sing to load the sing, and that builds the root of the sing, and then it traverses and uses class B functions to build each node. So I think what it should be happening is that, yeah, but the thing is, that's the thing that is strange, because I don't remember if I probably don't have the class on the, but maybe it's because it's a new class. I think that's what is going on. Because the stuff there is related to documentation, it seems like. Yeah, I do remember, like, there's a bunch of different messages here, these messages of these classes. And this only shows whenever you change, I think, something. It's probably like whenever you add a new class or something like that, because it's something internal related to the documentation. I do remember that I spent some time at some points before looking into this message here. It's not it's nothing really important, I think. Like these messages here. But I think every time that you change or add new classes, it probably runs some stuff related to documentation there. And then because it's running the stuff, it's building the class without, it's trying to get the state of the class without running the constructor. Something along those lines, I think. Yeah, because like this message here, for example, comes from the class that is not part of the current project that I'm running there. So I think it's something related to the way that the engine updates the documentation or something along those lines. And then, like weirdly, it doesn't run the constructor of the class before it tries to get the properties. And because I'm using the values from the class, it breaks. I think that's what's going on. Yeah, get documentation default value. There should be something like that. I was gonna search this. It's not exposed. I know for sure that I looked into this at some point. A doc tools generates. Editor help. Just gonna go back. So there isn't an easy way to see from here where does it come from, because it's probably like a deferred callback or something like that. I'm just gonna search the message. Yeah, it's basically this part here. I think that this only runs when you change something, but I don't remember how this works. I guess the easiest way would be to like put the breakpoints. But I already did this. I can go back there. And it's gonna be from this editor out. It's probably this. Yeah, so I think that's is most likely is this thing. I think when they change there, it's gonna change this path, and then it's gonna hit this condition here, which you are this one. Yeah, this one is if it is valid. So if it isn't valid, it's gonna run this thing, and then this one generates the message there. I know for sure that like all those messages were from stuff that the engine had before I started changing things. So I think those classes are stuff related to the engine. It might be a macro or depending on the build system that you use. The flags you use on scones. It doesn't build these classes here. So I'm not gonna spend time on this. I'm just gonna try to solve the easiest way possible. Just put the condition there. I guess I could put the macro is probably better. But it's probably not worth it to think about this stuff now, since I might change everything later anyway, so it's gonna be a waste of time. Nice. Yeah, whatever. You've just got close. So now let's think about the identification draw. This one already spent some time. I think based on the names are very good because they are very descriptive. So it's easy to understand based on the names what each thing is supposed to do. But the overall structure, I think, is very confusing. And obviously it's like complicated by default. It's just a complicated thing to do. So I think probably what this function does is move the editor based on the caret. So it probably moves the slider position from the scrolls. I think what I should aim to do is to I think about the functions in a way that all these small calls. The problem is that they do this a lot, which obviously makes sense based on the original design, but it's kind of annoying. But I think what I should aim to do is to restructure the functions in a way that I can do all these calculations before I send the data to the text visualizer. So move everything. The problem is, so like, yeah, translate the function calls into arguments or into data and pass through as arguments to the functions. So I think whenever I see this, it's probably an indication that the boundary is not correct. So it doesn't make sense to put this column x offset for a line. Like I think this makes more sense on the other class probably, because not like it is related obviously to the visualization because everything is, but it's not directly related. Like it's indirectly related. I think this is more related to the like organization logic of the thing. And like this is the thing that is kind of confusing. So like when I put there, oh no, it's I'm looking. I have to. So it's better to copy everything first because otherwise I'm just gonna be like looking on this class and then it's not gonna allow me to see. So I'm gonna copy on the notification here. Then I'll think about how to break it down here. As here I'm gonna be able to know. Like I might have, but I think that's the function that I was looking at. The adjust caret to viewports is on this one, which I think kind of makes sense. But the one that it calls there inside of that one, I think it is. It doesn't make sense to be on this class, and it is on this class. This part here, I think is the easiest one to move to a function, obviously because it is like all this stuff related to the minimap, which is the minimap thing. Like VS Code also has a minimap, but I never saw like a. I don't think it's very useful. I think I should leave it just because like it doesn't make sense to remove. But if I change things and then it's too annoying to make it work, I think I should just remove to simplify. Because I can't remember like any time at all that I needed like a minimap. It's kind of useless. You can just navigate with the key bindings. So it doesn't really matter that much. And obviously I want to remove anything that doesn't matter. It gets like as simplest as possible, which is obviously very hard to do. So I think this on this thing here. Yeah, it is on this class, but it should probably be on the other one, I think. Because here, like, I think that the reason why I left it here is because of the theme cache here. So this is a weird thing. I think like the team cache is kind of confusing, and I think like it's confusing for the same reasons where the other parts are confusing, like the drag and drop, for example, because I don't know for sure how it's gonna work. Like based on the previous experience that I have, changing the type container is not very obvious to me. Like how Godot's gonna think about the overall sync tree structure, because the class that is initializing everything is symbol crafter, but I think that the class that it, and because the class that is initializing everything is symbol crafter, it should probably be on the symbol crafter class. So but then it's kind of weird because like you're switching the role of the class in the first place, if that makes sense. Yeah, but the thing that on the FS view it works, and I put the drag and drop on the FS view class. And so I think it's different than type container. I think the mental model that I should have is probably the same that I had on the FS view. So like the interface is the text visualizer, is the thing we interact with. Then the symbol crafter is like the controller, and the model would be the parser. The model would be like the document model or not like another class that I don't have. And then the other class would be like managing the additional features. I think that's the mental model, and the uncertainty is around how the overall sync tree is gonna interact with that, because like it's like based on the way that I'm doing now, the node that is gonna be inserted on the tree is actually the symbol crafter, and then the text visualizer is gonna be a child of the symbol crafter. So that changes, I think, the relationship between the notifications and the inputs. So, and that's the reason why I think it's kind of weird. But the team cache should probably be on this class. But I think it depends on the way that he works there. Yeah, I think that this is the reason why it's weird. I think like from the Godot's standpoint, it makes more sense to put the team cache on the symbol crafter because it's the parent node. So like it makes sense that the parent node should encapsulate the style of the way that the thing is going to work, because there might be additional things that are not related to the text visualizer, but it are still like part of the style of the component on the scene. But maybe if that's the case, then I should change the design. So maybe it should be. I think that where it gets confusing is the intersection between the team cache and the functionality. Like this situation where the team is gonna directly impact the like managing logic, because this function makes a lot more sense to be on symbol crafter, I think, but it does rely on this team cache. So the challenge is like how should I draw the line. So maybe we should split the logic. I think so. I should come up with a heuristic like this. So any function that is so first make it work, then any function that has like this mixed logic, I create boundaries, and then I try to see how to split the logic between them. So like the goal I think should be to create a unidirectional data flow, so that but then again is like this confusing thing. I think it can't be unidirection. The way that I made it work on the FS view is based on signals. So, but like the signals I think is not very good on this, because it's like it needs to be faster. I think signals is gonna wait for the whole cycle. It's not very good. So probably, but then like does it make sense to have this design if that's the case? That's kind of the issue. This makes sense from a first principles perspective, but I'm not sure if it makes sense from like Godot's structure. Yeah, it might be because of the text though. I think this is the like I made it like this obviously like I said before to simplify. But probably the first thing that I should do is break down this stacks, see if it's necessary and how can I change. Because I think that the I can the obviously the challenge is that I don't know why. I always assume that there is a why, obviously, but like it's very complicated because like there's a bunch of moving pieces because the way that the engine evolves is not gonna be like, it isn't like just one person working and like on a linear thing. Like it's several different people in several different circumstances and like several external forces shaping everything. And obviously, it would be much better if I knew like the reason why. Because obviously, if it is here, there must be a reason. So this is always like the concern because then if I change this, it might break like a bunch of unnecessary things and you're just gonna spend more time focusing on stuff that doesn't matter. But like as it looks like for me, on my point of view now, it seems that it's just like it works in a similar way that the data inside of the node works. It's just like an abstraction inside of the class should prevent the namespace from being crowded. So it's like it works like a proxy or an API, and it doesn't have much importance. So what I was thinking about is that maybe I could move everything from outside of the class, put on this class directly. Then after that, the problem is obviously I'm gonna have to change everything, and that's the reason why I'm kind of hesitant about this. And then like once I have everything on the main class, then I can split the functions between the two classes. Then after I do that, it's probably gonna simplify a lot the logic. It's gonna make it easier to change the other functions. Because like this one is related to the visualizer, and this one is related to the thing. And then because it's using this API, it forces the function to be on a place that it shouldn't be, I think. I think this place here is a perfect example of this. It's probably the parsing that is incorrect, I think. 'Cause they're storing the information, but then again, I think like the reason probably why they did the parsing like this is because of the class that they're using that interacts with the server, which is a text paragraph, I think. As this thing here. This struct here, I think is the reason why they did it. So maybe the question that I should ask is how do they... I need to clarify the mental model of how everything works. So I should probably task with inputs first. I think I should just move everything to a symbol crafter because I can start from the point that I already have there, from the point and then change to just have the stuff that I'm thinking about implementing later. I think functions that I would delete, so I should just move to symbol crafter. And then functions related to logic from symbol crafter should be on symbol craft. The problem obviously is how to deal with the giant loop that they have there. I guess this is the issue, is like the thing that makes it very hard. Because like the essence of the thing is gonna require to change everything else, I think. Because it's based on the way that they are breaking down the tags, I think. That's the fundamental thing. So the way that the way you break down the tags is gonna impact the way that you create the data structure to manage the data, which is gonna change the design of everything. So that's the, and I have to clarify this, I think, because obviously it makes a lot more sense to think more so you can do less. So you avoid doing unnecessary work. But obviously it's always a balance because you don't want to be too much on paralysis by analysis. It's very hard to strike the balance. Yeah, they use these macros to declare servers. That's another thing that is kind of annoying, but is understandable. That's like because they use because they use object-oriented programming and they use the macros, you can only know for sure the class that is running the function by debugging, because you can only you can only know on runtime which class is actually running. There's a lot of situations you're gonna be like, if you go to the definition, it's gonna go to the base class, but it's another class that is running the function. But they're using this text server and text advanced server, I think, to actually get the information to draw, because obviously the servers are going to be the things that draw the. I think that the server doesn't draw; it just manages the data, and then the device renderer or device something is gonna actually draw, create the vocal commands to draw. So glyph is obviously gonna be probably have here. The glyph is like a rectangle that the GPU is gonna use to actually draw the text based on the Bezier curves that make up the text. I think it depends on which text you are using, the format of the text. But as far as I remember, it's like you have libraries, which is obviously going to be code, that parses the text, the information from a file, which is the vectors that create the text. And then based on that, you create the points you're going to send to the GPU, which is basically going to form a quad, which is basically two triangles. And the name of this is a glyph. So obviously on the function, I think that's what's doing there. Based on the resource ID, is gonna get the position of the glyph that makes up the caret. As this stuff here. I'm gonna put everything on this probably. Caret info. Yeah, caret. So it probably gets the information here, got this stuff, and puts on that struct and returns that. And then this uses this information to return the x position of the caret. I think the function is returning the caret offset, like the name says there. The x offsets. And then it's gonna set the value of the scroll based on the caret position. I think it just runs. Yeah, if it's probably like on situations where you have like a previous state maybe, where the caret can be offside, like outside of the view. So it moves the scroll to the position. Yeah, it's moving the scroll to the position where the characters are gonna be on the center of the thing, I think. So it does that on the first time that it draws. That's probably, so I'm not gonna change that. This stuff here, I'm gonna delete this stuff. That doesn't make sense because it's gonna be related to the highlighting. So I'm gonna delete this. Prevent the resource getting lost between the editor and the game. Yeah, just delete. It's obviously gonna update the values of the scroll bars. So this one, I think just gonna leave it here, obviously. This one is the one that I moved before. So it's probably better to move. Think about this. Actually, this one I think I should move to the thing right away. So probably what I should do. I should move this all these functions to the symbol crafter, and then delete them. The thing that when I moved, I wasn't sure because like this value here is gonna be used on the other parts. But these are the things that I think I'm gonna have to change now because like it's structurally different than what I'm trying to do. So there isn't a way to like just make it work now. I just have to think about this now. So that's like I understand how it works, how it's supposed to work, and then because I think the right thing to do is remove this, but this is gonna be used on the other parts. So in order to remove from the other parts because they're like coupled with everything else, I'm gonna have to understand the other stuff. And that's the only way to do this now. Because if I don't, then and if I just remove and make it work, it's gonna create more problems later, I think. Yeah, so it's used on here, and this is a giant loop there in the beginning. This is gonna use these glyphs from the other stuff there. Yeah, but the thing is, like, it might be easier to make it work first because then I can go over like with the debugger and then snap over, and also like remove stuff like I said and to test what it looks like. Another thing to clarify is that the mental model I had before, which is wrong, I think, is like imagining the editor with code already, with text already, then from that position. But I think that it's probably better to imagine without any code, and then like how it's gonna change the state after you write text to the file. I think that's the way that they thought about this probably. And then there are some functions that check to see if there is text already or not. Yeah, because this is the question: is at what point, like how do I make sense of the parsing logic? I guess this is the thing that I should focus on while I look into this, where and how. Because of the way that the tags work there, I know that it's gonna be related to the lines. And I guess this is the reason why, like I assume that in my mind I had the tags in the beginning because they probably split on lines and they use the slash n to parse the tags and they create the information of the tags class based on the lines. because they're saving everything in lines, obviously. So I think for that reason, I was thinking about from the position of already having text on the file. But if you're gonna put text and there isn't any text there, how do they make sure that they're gonna break down the information? It's probably gonna be related to the events, obviously. So maybe you should search for the what happens for the enter. Because this is gonna create a new line, so you can look for the functionality from that point. I'm gonna remove. It's probably the best thing to do is just remove. The easiest one is this one, so I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna create functions on top of the notification. So I'm not gonna put on the class, I think. I'm just gonna draw a minimap. Just gonna copy the code. Well, not sure why it does this at some points. It's weird. I'm just gonna copy the code into these functions and delete from the original one, call the function. I mean, maybe this is the best thing to do. So I break it down here first, then I investigate each part. I'll be right back. Ask GPT what it thinks is this. Yeah, I guess this is the part of the like that. This is true if there isn't any text on the editor. This shouldn't be here, I think. It should probably be. I think the reason. Oh, it doesn't seem. I probably put it here because of the function. I think everything related to wrapped lines is on the text visualizer. But the thing is, probably doesn't make sense to have stuff because like wrapped, but wrapped is related to visualization. So I'm not really sure. L data is probably because of line data. So yeah, this is the massive loop. This is kind of weird though. So I guess the only explanation for this is that this should get all the lines, regardless of whether or not they are wrapped, but it returns different values if they are. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. Yeah, I get line counts -1. So this is kind of weird. Because when yeah, maybe this one. Hmm. So this is probably the start. Yeah, I don't like this, to be honest. It's probably because I don't understand very much. Like, it's basically doing the same thing, you're just checking your... Like, I could call this from here, and then I make it equal to a variable, and then pass. Instead of calling twice. The thing that I don't understand is the name. I'm gonna move this stuff there. Obviously, it's not gonna work the way that I'm doing here, just to make it easier to think about. Because I think I'm gonna have to change everything before I make it work. Hmm. I have to change the name of the function. Like, I'm not really sure if it's... I'm gonna ask what is the purpose of having multiple cards. I think you should probably remove this and make it only one caret. Like, the most challenging parts is because everything I change, I'm gonna have to change everything else. So I have to be kind of careful what stuff I... Maybe I should commit everything now and then like create another branch and then just do a bunch of stuff. I want to avoid thinking about stuff without needing to think about the stuff. I think I should probably remove this because I don't see... I don't think I ever... Like, there could be things that are related to debugging that I don't understand. They use multiple cards, but from what I remember, I don't think that I ever use multiple cards. And I think that this is related to having multiple cards, so I should probably just have one here instead of having this vector, just have one card, then change everything else. Maybe this is not the carrot, like the icon that shows here. Maybe it's something else. Yeah, so I do think that is just based on the description here. It's probably useful for stuff like Vim, where you select multiple different parts of the code or stuff like that. So I think that for that reason, so it's probably not just the visual stuff that shows, like keeping track of the logic of multiple things. So it might be very useful. So it is probably very useful. Just gonna leave it there. Yeah, I think placeholder should be probably on text visualizer instead. So I don't remember. I think that the update placeholder is used on some functions that are related to this. So that's probably the reason why I put here in this place. Yeah, but this stuff should be on the other one as well, I think. Because the main point of the placeholder is just for when you don't have the text. So I think you should probably move this to the text visualizer. Yeah, it uses a bunch of stuff from text visualizer. I'm gonna move this, but I want to see the other stuff first. Alright, doesn't make sense, should be here. This one should probably also be on the text visualizer. I think the main reason why these functions are on this class is because of the text. So I should probably break down the text, but I think I'm gonna do this later. But probably the placeholder I'm gonna move now. Or like, as I change the notification drawer, I should move because it's obviously gonna be related to the drawing logic. It's like it's more related. That makes sense. I should probably move. And this is just gonna get from the. It should be on this class. So again, I think that this should be on the other class. But it is kind of hard because it doesn't. Yeah, maybe actually not. I think it should be on the other class because it's probably mainly related to the drawing. So this should be on the other class, I think, as well. Probably the reason why I put here is because of the text. So line height and line width should be on the other one, I think. Validate cache. I mean, the good thing about this is that I'm already learning about the thing as I refactor everything. So it kind of forces me to learn more about the way that it works. Because I would have to learn anyway, so like. Let's see if this. Actually, I think yeah, I got the wrong one actually. So the main loop is this one. So the draw amount. So it's based on this visible rows is the one that I was looking at before, where it's the control divided by the height there. The height of the overall thing divided by the visible height or the line height. Yeah, line height. So this one I think is on the visualizer. So it just gets the size of the control node, subtracts from the minimum height of this style. And if the edge scroll is visible, it adjusts the height based on the edge scroll. This one I don't understand very well because of the way that this works here. I guess like this is gonna be the relative height of this scroll. The thing that is very weird is that like and this is the same with the split container as well. It's kind of confusing to understand. But like it's age scroll, but it's for the height. So that's kind of confusing. But obviously what I think is happening is just gonna get the overall height of the actual control node. Then it's gonna divide by the line height to get how many lines are visible. That's probably what is happening there. And then the amount's gonna be -1. Oh, it's gonna be, it's not this function. Yeah, it's +1. I think it's +1 for some buffer, probably. And I guess this one from the text paragraph there, I think. It comes from the text. So it is the height from here plus the value of the line spacing from the thing cache. Or 1, I think. Okay, so this is gonna be the amount of visible rows. As either 1 or 0. So extra. So this is kind of like a small buffer. The 1 should draw one extra line. So it's basically gonna loop over the amounts of visible lines, which makes sense. But the thing that is kind of hard to think about is whether or not it makes sense, like in the context of the overall thing. Because obviously it's gonna be, I think it probably does make sense, sure, but maybe it doesn't actually. Like from the visual perspective, it does make sense to break down into lines, but from the parsing perspective, it doesn't. I think because it depends, obviously. Like how do you draw the line between the two? Let's see how this we got this one. It's probably gonna be based on the edge scroll again. So we got the first visible line. Now it's based on the size -1. So does this mean that it is the other way around? Like puts the first line at the end of the vector? I think that's what it means. It's not the way that I was thinking about. Yeah, but it seems that it puts the first line on at the end of the vector. Or the logic here is assuming the first line is the on the bottom. And this is gonna be on the symbol crafter. So this is the part that is kind of hard to know for sure how to do it. It's probably because I'm not understanding very well how this works. Like since it is increasing the index there for the line, but like it seems that it is getting from the size minus or the size plus, I think it's -1. So if the size -1 is the first line, shouldn't that mean that? I'm gonna ask this ChatGPT, but I'm pretty sure that this means that the last position, last element on the vector is gonna be the first line. But then why does it increase here? Doesn't make a lot of sense. I think here is just checking the boundaries to see if the line is on the range. Like obviously it's not gonna be negative. And it can't be bigger than the text size. So it just skips. And this, I think this is just like a precaution, let's say, in case there is some mistake. Because the draw amount should obviously always be the amount of visible lines. So the line there should never exceed the text size. Actually, maybe it does. Yeah, it does exceed, obviously. Because you can have situations where like the size of the overall thing is greater than the size of the text. So obviously it does exceed. I'm gonna have to look into the original one. I think it's because it's using clamp, so it's gonna default to this one. So this one is in case it doesn't have this. Oh yeah, so it's like limiting the range should be the maximum here, but it's gonna be 0 probably in most cases. Which obviously makes more sense. Yeah. It's not gonna be 0 when there is a scroll. So probably when you scroll, it stores the first visible line on this, and then it makes sure that it doesn't exceed the text. So it's only gonna be this value, which is the last element when there isn't any lines showing, or there is only the last line showing. So I think it makes sense. I still don't understand why I use this thing here. Ask ChatGPT. Like, the thing that I'm thinking about is that it might be like the reason why I said that I'm not really sure about the new lines stuff, that it might be more effective to draw based on the parsing instead of the text. But the downside of this obviously is that it limits the way you do things. But like maybe it's possible to do it in the original way. It's essentially is the same thing. So like I could have the default case where if the parser doesn't, if there isn't a language, if it's just text, then it defaults to creating tokens based on lines. Like I can create a parser that's based, it parses based on new lines, and then it would default based on the other logic, but it would be different because instead of looping over the lines, you would loop over the tokens instead. So like instead of a drawing based on the structure of the lines, you would draw based on the structure of the tokens. So you would traverse the tree and draw based on the structure of the tokens. I think that makes it easier to think about. But then obviously it's gonna change everything here, and I think that like this is kind of the issue because the class on the server is for lines, I think. But maybe not, like maybe it's just the vectors. It seems here that they use these indexes as the lines, like to determine the logic of how this stuff is gonna be drawn. Because this is gonna get the information from the vector. And this uses it overloads the operator, the square brackets operator. So it's actually just getting the data from here. So it seems that on the other class they do all the logic based on the indexes of the vector of this vector here, and then they store the information on the struct. And I guess this is the fundamental issue, and this is why it's kind of annoying because it might be better to like I think probably for the way that I'm thinking about doing things is gonna be different because this is directly related to the parsing logic. I think the way that you parse is gonna determine the way that you store the information here. But I guess that the problem is that because of the way that this class works, it probably makes sense to store everything based on lines. So I guess this is the thing that I have to investigate. Also because of the gutters, but I can decouple the logic of the gutters from the logic of the. But maybe that's not a good idea because obviously it's gonna be related. Yeah, this get line counts. It's gonna come from the other class. Hmm. Yeah, but I can create like other algorithms somewhere else. Also makes sense. So what if there isn't line wraps here? So it's gonna get the amount of lines to draw based on the text paragraph. I guess this is where the main logic is gonna be. So this is very confusing, I'm not gonna lie. It's confusing because it's mixing these wraps, like it's mixing the stuff related to wrap logic with the normal stuff. I think you should mix. In my mind, it would be better to have two different modes. The wrap mode and the unwraps should be probably based on a variable. I think it should be a variable instead of the text there. Like instead of the line struct that determines whether or not the line is wrapped. You know, not because then it becomes less confusing. A variable instead of here. And then if that variable is true or some other data instead of here, then you do it like other logic. But I guess they did it like this because but then like it would make more sense to get all the lines. Yeah, but then it impacts, I think. Yeah. Like depending on whether or not the line's gonna be wrapped, it changes the other logic because it changes the size. Because obviously if you have a wrapped line is like 2 lines or more. And if the line is not wrapped, then it counts as 1 line only. But I still think it's probably better to change this. Because this way it is kind of confusing. And so it's getting the text from this. She probably gets from the line there. This is gonna get the line data. It's returning a string. So it returns so this string is gonna hold the text for the line. The other thing is kind of weird. Like it seems that they are getting the line counts based on this value, this variable here, but this variable is stored on the line, which also doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if it is the line count of the whole thing, then why puts on every line? But I guess it's coupled like this because there's something weird with the line there of like responsibility of each thing. And I think it's probably because of the nature of this class that they did it like this. But it's still kind of weird. I think that it's probably not the best. Maybe the count is something else. Yeah, like this class, I guess No, but I think that the relationship between the two is kind of weird. But it seems this class is kind of weird as well. I guess like this class makes more sense, I think, because it probably holds the state for like the entire text. It's like the text paragraph as it says. And then it uses the entire state to get information from specific parts, I guess. Yeah, like, and then it probably stores everything based on lines. But the other one, I think it doesn't make sense because like, you should use this text paragraph to put the information, so like unpack the information, I think, for each line, and then put this outside it, probably. So move this outside and then put extra information on each line. Because then you're creating this only once per text. That makes more sense, I think. So this is gonna get the string from the line. It's gonna put there. And this probably uses the text paragraph to get all the lines. Yeah, so this is getting the limit of the wrapped line. Hmm. Contemplating whether or not it makes sense to move the thing outside, and I still think that it does. Because like it's using the functions here to get, like it's using the functions from the text paragraph to get the information based on the index. But I still think that like this could be done if the text paragraph was outside. So this is gonna get all the text. There's this string of the text for the line, either the unwrapped or wrapped. So this got the text for each row, and then it's gonna get the string from each row here. Again, this is probably using the other. Yeah, it's gonna. So this one actually starts here. This is interesting to know. Yeah, I guess like this is the fundament. I think I got to the core of the issue here. So I think that they did it like this because of this class here. This class organizes the text on lines, and then they created this struct for each line, and then created this interface or this API to put this function so that they change the state of each line because they are looping the lines on the draw, and then based on each line they change. But the issue is, I think this is probably not the best. I think it makes more sense. The problem is that I still not sure. I do think that regardless of whether or not it makes more sense to parse the text on lines or tokens, I still think that it doesn't, like, the way that they organize this doesn't make sense. So both the text doesn't make sense, and the boundary of this, the state of this struct here. So probably what I should do is move this stuff outside of the text and also change the struct here. Then once I do that, but I have to spend time thinking about whether or not it's worth it to do this, because it might break things. I think probably what I should do is commit to the branch that I have there, and then I like start from this branch again, just to change this stuff. Then if it breaks everything, you just go back to the old one. Because I think the main thing here is this vector here, as far as I can tell. Like, and the rest, it doesn't matter if it is directly on the class instead of being inside of this text class. Just gonna change the functions, but it's basically the same thing. Like, and I want to do that because it's gonna make it easier to break it down. Because like having everything here forces the thing to be on one class, which is not very good. This has to be broken down into different parts. That's the main thing that I have to do, I think. And I think that it might be better to organize the text on tokens instead. So like create functions that convert the state from the text paragraph into tokens instead, and then send the tokens to the visualizer. Then make the drawing logic based on the tokens, and then have the state of the boundaries of the visible lines on the main class there. So like you can still get all the data from this class directly. And so I have to investigate how this works. How do they... And that's the main thing I have to see. The way that I'm imagining now, yeah, but it depends on the way that is updated. But I think probably it's gonna keep track of the whole text with this data buff here. And then it breaks down, but I might be wrong, obviously. It might be just one line. And that's the reason why they put it here, because each line requires this text paragraph. But I think it's probably, even if it is like this now, I think I probably can make it work by putting this outside, and then I put the state of the whole text on this text paragraph, and I do the rest of the stuff based on tokens, and then I just extract the like generic information from this text paragraph, and I do the drawing logic based on the tokens, and put the limits of what's drawn based on the the state of this class. The issue is that like there isn't an easy step to progress from here because I can't break down the loop, I think. I guess I can maybe put this stuff here on a function. This thing, but it's still a giant loop. And I think like the problem here is that like the simplification is not on the like the fundamental the cause is the line struct and the tags class and the way that they are like managing the parsing of the tags and like not just the parsing but the organization of how the parsing translates into the drawing. So it doesn't matter like there isn't a way to an easy progression I think to break this down and then fix the other stuff later. So this is another interesting thing that they first draw. I think they don't draw the whole line here. They just draw the background first line, then they draw the gutters. The gutter is the part that is like on the side here, the information on the side. So they draw the backgrounds first, then they draw the gutters. But it's kind of weird. Now maybe I'm understanding it wrong because like why are they looping over all the gutters here? Since they're gonna loop over each line anyway, like on the main loop here. So like I don't understand if it makes sense to go over all the gutters for each line. It's like a nested loop. I guess it's gonna be the same thing. It's gonna get from the line there. Then gets from here and then gets from the it uses this stuff to draw. Like this is another thing. I have to change this for sure. Because obviously this is going to be connected to the debug logic and I think that it can be improved a lot. Like the structure of the whole thing has to change. I think I'm very confident that this is the case. I'm not 100% sure what is the best way to progressively go about, or what is the best strategy to progressively go from this point here into the stuff that I'm thinking about on the end, or in the end. This might be the reason Oh, but I guess it's the same thing. I guess based on the index. So it still has the state of the whole thing, I think. Like this is kind of like the server that manages the whole text. The text structure. And then this just puts the colors and puts the positions on the control. I think selection is also another thing, is basically the same idea with the tokens. Like instead of doing selections like this, I can do it based on, I can create the abstract syntax tree of the text and then traverse the tree. So like for example, when you select this, it selects everything else. But this thing I'm not pretty sure if it works like this. I think it probably does because like you can traverse the tree and then you can get the metadata from the nodes to see what is the text that like represents the name of the function, and then you highlight everything with that text. So doing with tokens is a lot more efficient, I think, on these situations. But then on situations where I have this, then obviously it should be something like this, I think. So, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that there might be more like more effective ways to do this. So they're just keeping track based on this struct. This is inside of the vectors of the chars. So they hold the information here. It's not that hard to understand. And this is interesting as well. So it draws the selections based on rectangles. And based on the position here. So I guess like the rectangle is going to be the equivalent to a glyph. Maybe these ones I can put on another function there. So I put the gutters on. I think I should probably do this, like put this loop here on, put the loop on one function. I put the entire loop on one function, then the other loop, the inner loop, on another function. Then each main part of this, I put it on another function, which is just, it's gonna be the background, then the gutters, then the selection, or the carrots here. Probably starting from here. And here's the highlights. Oh, this is still related to selection. Search highlights. Yeah, this is another thing. I think that this can be like it should be separated. I think so. This logic should be, yeah. It shouldn't. This logic shouldn't be here. This logic should be on the symbol crafter. Hmm. Yeah, but then this is the thing. Like, I think it should be member variables of the class. I should the state of the text visualizer, like you should put member variables on the text visualizer. Then I do the searching logic on the symbol crafter. So the way that it would work, I think, is like I have the find and replace bar outside. Then you type on the find and replace bar. The inputs or the signal goes to the symbol crafter. The symbol crafter parses the text to find the logic. And then from that, after parsing the text, it calls the functions from the text visualizer to change its state. So basically change the structs, or not the structs. I guess this is the thing. There isn't a state of the, but I think it should be something like this, where like, because it has to be through the state, because you have to draw the section each frame, so it has to be inside of the identification draw. It can't be just a function outside that gets called from the symbol crafter, because then you wouldn't draw every time after you type a selection here. So it has to be something that draws every time, but obviously you only want to show after there is a search. So I think that it should be through the states of the text visualizer, and the logic should be on the symbol crafter. That's what I'm gonna try to do. So I should probably remove this from here, and then think about like what data structure to use to determine how to. It should be something to do with the line, so I can create functions on the symbol crafter, like the ones that they use here to get the positions of the rectangles, and just copy the logic that they use to draw the selection. So instead of getting the rectangles from this way, I would have the functions on the symbol crafter that gets the selection. I think the main difference would be this search tags, maybe. Oh, but this is already on that. So this is probably already on the symbol crafter. I think that this is kind of tricky to figure out, because in practice, like I think that the class that manages the GDScript logic is not going to be the text edit, is the script editor. And the script editor uses the script text editor, which uses code edit, which inherits from text edit. So like there's several layers of abstraction. So probably the search logic somewhere else. Yeah, I'm not gonna look into this now, but I think that it is pretty similar to what I said, what they have here, because this is probably, and the way that they are doing is only one class, but the search tags I think is the main thing that is should be on the symbol crafter. Because here, like this is still, yeah, but maybe actually this could be it should be on the other one probably. Maybe I should move this. Or I think I should create another function on the other one, because it makes more, everything that is related to selection is on the other class. So I think it makes more sense to create another function and just update the states of the search based on selections. And the thing is that this is the related to position, so maybe it does make sense to use this. I guess it is pretty similar to the way I was thinking about. The only difference is going to be the search tags, but on their situation is probably different because it's being set somewhere else. Yeah, here. Yeah, so no, but this is the class that I created, but it's basically the same as the one that they had there on the find and replace bar. Yeah, it's probably this. Yeah, search tags. So it is basically the same thing that I was thinking about. But I think instead of putting on this bar, I'm gonna put on the symbol crafter class. I think that makes sense. Yeah, but then like what would change? That's basically the same. Yeah, maybe the position should be different. Yeah, I think it does. It is kind of different the way that I'm thinking, but it's just slightly different. So I was thinking like you create a function symbol crafter receives the tags, then from the tags you update the state of the selection of the lines, and then based on the state of the selections you get the positions on the other one. So I do think that it's kind of different. So here they're getting the column based on this. They're setting the tags. This is probably the string of the line. So based on the string of the line, they see if there is the search tags on the string. Yeah, maybe it is the same stuff. Yeah, maybe this way is better actually, because the step leadership position should be on this one. And since you're gonna have to go over each line anyway, you just search for the information on the line, get the position, and then you draw based on whether or not it has. And just draw based on the same way that you draw the other selections. So this comes from the text paragraph, gets the resource ID for the line. Then it gets the glyph counts on this, loops over the glyph counts. And gets from the highlight map, loops over here. And it's gonna, so this is the logic responsible for the highlighting, the symbol highlighting, which is different than the selection highlighting. Actually, maybe it might be somewhere else. Like it might be on the other classes. Because this is the base class, so maybe it doesn't have anything. It is related to some stuff like that. Some, I'm not sure if it is like related to a programming language highlighting. Yeah, this syntax highlighting, this syntax highlighter is set from other classes, and so I guess it is related to language because this is what makes the bridge. On the original one as it is right now, they have this base class which is the syntax highlighter, and then for each language they have uh, derived class that inherits from the base, and then the derived class probably has the rules to parse the language. So it's gonna create the tokens on that class, and then it does the highlighting based on this. So this probably creates or gets the map from the syntax highlighting, the dictionary, and then this probably has the logic to get which words, gets the color for the tokens. I think that's how it works. So if I have like functions or if else statements, it's probably the map that creates like if else block put red or function put yellow, stuff like that. That's probably the what this function returns on the derived classes. So this would be the map that is used. Here, and then it's gonna draw depending on the map. I think I'm gonna stop streaming now. There's a lot of things to think about. Like the main thing that I have to spend time thinking about is like because there's a lot of stuff to change. Like there's a lot of steps from the way that it is now to the way that it has to be later. And the thing is that I'm not even 100% clear on the way that it has to be because it depends on the parsing and stuff like that, which I'm not 100% sure how it's gonna look. But I know that I have some idea of roughly where it has to be so that I have a good starting point to implement things later. So from the way that it is now to the way that has to be there, there's several steps that need to be implemented, and what I have to spend time thinking about is what is the best way to break this down into smaller tasks so I can incrementally go to the place that it has to be. And maybe you should take a break and then start moving this stuff. I think you should probably move the whole loop to a function first. I should move the loops and these parts that I broke down now into specific functions, even if there's going to be a lot of problems because they depend on variables from each other. Just to simplify the, or to make it easier to think about each part. So I think what I can do is comment everything else, like move to functions, then comment some of the functions out, make that compile, the first part compile, then change the rest. There's several different approaches though. Actually, there's two main approaches, I think. Either way, I think I should move this to a function. So move the main loop to a function. This one, then move the other one to another function. Break that down into other functions. And that I should do that regardless, I think. But it depends because it might be annoying to connect the values from each of the functions. Because obviously you have to connect based on arguments and return statements. Or you move some of the logic outside of the function until it works. So like the easiest way possible is just to call everything from a pointer. I put everything on this one, then put a pointer every time that there is a function that is from the other class. Then make a compile. Then after doing that, break down or refactor the text class and the other ones. Then only after try to simplify the drawing. And the other approach would be to break the identification draw now, then try to make sense of these boundaries and these things. Then move the stuff from classes, try to compile, then after that try to refactor further. But I think that like they're codependent on each other. Because this logic here it depends on the structure of the text. So I guess the best thing to do is to move this to a function. Break down into functions first because then I can comment out and I can simplify that way first. So I'm just gonna break down into these boundaries first. Then I see if they depend. The problem is that there's too many variables. Because the issue is gonna be on the bridge between the functions, like the information that each one needs. Yeah, but I guess I should break down first. So draw. I should remove first from the maybe what I should do is try to, I'm gonna make these functions as part of the text visualizer, and then I try to compile each time, and then based on the errors, I either move the variables as outside of the function, the parent function, or like figure out a way to bridge the gap between them. Then make this way work first. Then once I make this work, then I can think about I move one of the sub functions to the symbol crafter and call from that. Or don't call anymore and just remove from the class and leave on the symbol crafter so I can think about it later. I want to try to find like the sections here. I think here would be like the background stuff. It's probably just this block here. And maybe this should go together. I can put this on highlight section. It's weird that the S cards there and has cards here. And what is the difference? So maybe this shoe can be merged. It's basically the same loop. I think that they can be merged. I want to do. I think this way that I'm doing here probably is the best. So I divide based on these sections here that I have. And I think I'm gonna try to merge this one with the other one. So first I put both of them on the same function, and then I just move the code inside of here to the last parts of the other one. But they're probably different because it looks like there isn't any continue here. Oh, there is here. That's probably why they are separate. Actually, but I think it probably doesn't matter if I put this. It matters if the other one has, because then it would skip. But maybe there is a way to merge the two by changing the logic. Yeah, there is continue. This could be a break instead of continue. So I think I can change this. Can put break here instead. But the break is gonna stop the loop. But yeah, this doesn't matter because it's on a NASA loop. So I can merge the two things. I can put the other one after this one here. Which is probably what I'm gonna do. So I wanna understand this part first. I think that there's also two, it calls this gutters, loops over the gutters two times, maybe. So looks like this is mainly for gutters. So it has to be the part inside of the loop. Actually, don't need here. Yeah, I have to move this up there. Fuck, I forgot about this. I have to go back. Yeah, I'm gonna stop streaming here. So I'm gonna convert these three sections here into functions as well after the draw line carrots, and I'm probably gonna try to merge the two loops here into one. And after I do this, I'm going to go over function by function and see like what do they depend on that is not inside of the function, and then pass as an argument, or just try to remove from the function, like put it back outside on this part here. Then once I have the like the defined functions, then I'll make them. I think I'm gonna make them part of the class first, to so that is easier to see like what is actually not in the function. Then once I have all these functions, then I'm gonna think about like which ones am I gonna need right now? Which ones can I remove, and which ones can be moved through the symbol crafter? And I think I'm gonna try to find a way to make work first with the pointers. So like I'm gonna do the separation on my mind of which ones I think that I can move to the other class, or that I can remove for now. The ones that I think I can remove, just gonna I think I'm gonna move to the other class, and I'm gonna comment the function out. Then I'm gonna try to make work by calling from the pointers. Call anything that is necessary using the pointer from the other class. Then try to make it compile with this way. Then once I get to that point, then I think about how to. I think once I get to that point, I'm gonna test on the editor to see how it looks like, and if there is anything that is weird. And then, yeah, that part, at that point, I'm gonna have to think about whether or not it's worth it to finish, like, implement the code edit stuff as well. Which I think I'm gonna spend some time looking into the code edit first, the code, like, to see if it depends a lot on the way that things are here, or is more like it doesn't rely too much. But I'm probably gonna have to put the code edits logic as well first on these classes. Then once I get to the point, I can think about, like, I'm probably gonna have to change this thing here, which I don't like. I think first I'm gonna move this class outside of this other one. Then I'm gonna try to probably move one function at a time, or yeah. I think changing one function at a time is probably gonna be the best approach. Until I can move all these structs here from the original class. Once I can do that, I can break down, like I can move some stuff from to the other class, which will probably allow me to refactor the other functions as well, or move functions around. Because I think that the one of the main reasons why I did this bit the way that it is now is because of the text, because like the text couples the logic. So once I can separate more, then only after that I think I can think about maybe changing the structure, the way that the text is being parsed. I'm gonna do all this stuff first. Yeah, all this stuff first. Then I'll think about this. Try to clarify what is the flow of all the functions and everything that goes on to update the state of the text paragraph, and then think about like if there are better ways to, or what is the most effective way to highlight the text and to parse the text. Yeah, but first I have to clarify this distinction between the two classes, and then only after that I think I can focus on the parsing. But then at that point I might focus on the other classes first, finish everything on the scene, and then come back to this after. But I'm gonna continue to do this stuff off stream, this iteration here, because it's kind of annoying. So next time I'm probably just gonna continue to refactor these classes and yeah, do this plan that I just talked about. So see you next time.